The International Court of Justice on May 24th ruled that Israel must immediately stop its military offensive in Rafah, the southernmost city of Gaza, where over 1.4 million Palestinians, most of them displaced people, were camping. 2 days later, Israel carried out devastating airstrikes on Rafah, targeting 10 camps of the displaced in areas that were designated as humanitarian corridors, killing at least 45 Palestinians, half of them children, women, and older people, creating a global outrage. Hello everyone, this is Stanley Johnny, the Hindu's International Affairs editor. The Gaza war is in its 8th month. In January, while hearing a genocide case against Israel that was filed by South Africa, the International Court of Justice, the United Nations top court, had asked Tel Aviv to take necessary measures to prevent acts of genocide in Gaza. It was a momentous ruling, as the Hindu's editorial noted on January 29th. But the ruling did not have any effect on the way the Jewish state is conducting the war on Gaza. On March 25th, the UN Security Council demanded an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, but Israel not just continued the war, defying the UNSC resolution, but also expanded its operations in May by invading Rafah. The ICJ, which refused to order a ceasefire in January, came to the conclusion this month that the Rafah offensive could lead to a complete or partial destruction of the Palestinian population in the city. The court also asked Israel to keep the Rafah crossing with Egypt open for aid delivery and allow United Nations investigators to gather evidence about alleged war crimes in the city, besides demanding an immediate release of all hostages who were taken by Hamas on October 7th. The ICJ ruling came days after the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, claimed that Israeli and Hamas leaders had committed war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. He has sought arrest warrants against Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and Hamas leaders Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Deif, and Ismail Haniyeh. None of these developments seem to have deterred Israel. If so, the May 26th Rafah massacre would not have taken place. The ICJ rulings are legally binding, but the World Court lacks the mechanisms to implement them. In the 24 hours since the ICJ issued its ruling, Israeli airstrikes killed at least 190 civilians across the Gaza Strip, pushing the overall toll since the war began on October 7 to 36,000. Roughly 80,000 Palestinians have been wounded. Almost all of Gaza's population has been displaced. The enclave doesn't have enough food, medicines, shelter, or medical facilities. And the hungry, sick, displaced, and wounded Palestinians who live in tent camps and UN shelters continue to be bombed by the Israeli Defense Forces. Is this way of fighting helping Israel meet its objectives? More than 7 months after the war began, which was triggered by Hamas's October 7 cross-border attack on Israel, in which at least 1,200 people were killed, Tel Aviv seems to be fighting in the dark. When it launched the war, Mr. Netanyahu said he would crush Hamas and release all the hostages. True, Israel possesses enormous firepower to inflict damage on Gaza and kill Palestinians sleeping inside their tent camps. But has Israel defeated Hamas? Today, Israel is fighting Hamas even in northern and central parts of Gaza, where it had earlier declared victory. That Hamas launched rockets into Tel Aviv over the weekend, even after 7 months of fighting in a besieged enclave, raises serious questions about the way the war is being fought and Israel's military tactics. At least 120 hostages, most of them feared dead, are still in Hamas's captivity. The war is marked not just by the incompetence of the Israeli Defense Forces, but also its cruelty. Its disproportionate use of force on Gaza has turned the Strip into an open graveyard, as the United Nations termed it. The world cannot ignore the Palestine question anymore and move on, having witnessed this calamity in Gaza and the West Bank. Last week's decision by Norway, Ireland, and Spain to recognize the state of Palestine shows how the line of thinking is changing even in the West. The May 26 Rafah massacre has triggered sharp responses from world leaders, even from Israel's allies. French President Emmanuel Macron was outraged by the attack. Turkish leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan has condemned the barbaric attack and vowed to hold Israel accountable. The United States, Israel's strongest ally, did not condemn the attack but asked Tel Aviv to do everything to protect civilian lives. Mr. Netanyahu appears to be irrationally adamant today. His only focus is on a war that has done little to bolster Israel's security. Israel has not met its military objectives. Its deterrence has been broken twice, first by Hamas on October 7 and then by Iran on April the 14th. Peace with Arabs stands shattered. Saudi Arabia today says it is absolutely necessary that Israel accepts that it cannot exist without the existence of a Palestinian state. It stands isolated in the world. There could be an arrest warrant against Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Gallant in the coming days. And there is a ruling by the International Court of Justice against the way Israel is conducting the war. As the Hindu noted in an editorial on May 27th, by seeking to punish the entire Palestinian population in Gaza for what Hamas did on October 7, Mr. Netanyahu is rendering Israel's global standing weaker. Thank you very much. For more such videos, subscribe to The Hindu.